Because if I can be very specific, it's as good as your 13th favorite Marvel movie in that series. So,
Party like it's the greatest year in film.
yay! Well,
Kristen,
it was.
we got Amber.
Hello.
And Brandon.
Hi.
And Gary.
Hello again.
For this episode, we watched American Beauty, violently internalized homophobia.
I wasn't looking forward to watching this movie
I
again.
Me neither.
Okay.
On a wonderful Sunday morning.
I had never seen it.
Oh, really?
Oh.
So I have only known this movie in the post we know Kevin Spacey is an asshole.
Oh, yeah.
Man,
Yes.
there's been so many assholes, I already forgot.
Oh, my God,
Yeah.
no, it's, I mean, I love Kevin Spacey as an actor, and then you hear something like that, and it's like, oh, Kevin Spacey, why'd you do that?
Right. So the first time that I saw this, well, I saw the movie, like I knew what it was.
Yes.
Was VHS tape downstairs in my dad's basement,
yeah.
which I was not allowed to watch this movie. This was a no-no movie. But I always heard it was a good movie.
Yeah.
And so I want to say, again, this was a college time for me when I finally got to see it. And I really liked Kevin Spacey as an actor.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember watching it and feeling awful afterwards.
Very sad. Yes.
Super sad for so many reasons.
Yeah.
Ugh. So I wasn't really looking forward to watching this again.
Great. When did you first see it?
I saw it sometime before or after college when I made a very deliberate attempt to like go back and watch the movies that are really held in high regard to try and catch up on things like that.
Right.
So that was my first.
And this was a
time
Best
watching.
Picture winner, right?
Oh, was it?
I believe it was.
It wouldn't have surprised me. It was definitely one that I heard about a lot that I decided to watch.
Yeah, same year as here. I've got Cider House Rules, Insider, Green Mile, and Sixth Sense were the nominees.
Oh, wow.
That's right. I think American Beauty did win the Best Picture that year.
Wow.
But I saw it when I was 33 years old in the movie theater. And again, it's just one of those films which had that buzz, and Kevin Spacey, of course, being
Right.
acclaimed at the time.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of still is.
Well, he's a great actor.
It's just that he's now toxic and nobody can do anything with him anymore.
I mean, ever since he played Lex Luthor, you know.
Okay.
Well, that was a horrible movie anyway. That's just bad judgment. That's really.
Okay. You actually chose this film.
Yes.
This was going to be just a mini-sode, but lots of things snowballed and now it's not.
Right.
Why did you choose it?
It's definitely one of those movies that really, when I watched it, impacted me a lot. Just a lot of...
Where were you on your journey?
When I watched the movie? Oh, man. I think it's one of those things where you're starting to get out of being a kid. I'm starting to have more and more adult responsibilities. So it was definitely one of those movies where I was like, I don't want to be that. Like, I'm seeing this relation.
This is the nightmare.
This is the
scenario.
nightmare that I don't want to become a part of. And, you know,
Any one character specifically
the mom
that you were looking at?
Right, and Annette Bening,
Okay.
right.
The mom. Oh, God, what was her name in the movie?
I can't remember.
It's been
either.
like an entire week since I've watched this.
Right. It's just this morning for me. And I can't remember her name. But yeah, the mom, essentially. Kevin Spacey's movie wife. I can't even remember his name.
He was Lester.
Lester.
Yeah.
But yeah, I picked it just also because it was one of those movies that I remember seeing as a kid, not being allowed to watching it and going, oh, I know why. And this is
I
really
wasn't supposed
sad
to.
and messed up.
I had that same feeling with oh crap, what's the Ass to Ass movie?
Human Centipede?
Yeah.
No,
the other Ass to Ass
Requiem,
movie.
Requiem
Yes.
for a Dream.
Yes.
Okay, right.
Where it's another movie that's held in high regard and you watch it and you feel
You're like-
less of a person.
Yeah, because it was by the guy, the
That
guy
very
who did
pretentious
Black Swan.
dude.
Black Swan,
Yes.
Right, that was
Him.
Darren Aronofsky.
Yes, thank you.
That's the one.
And you're like,
Hate that
oh, Requiem for a
motherfucker.
Dream. You should watch this movie. It's a good movie. And you watch it and you're like, I feel like a shell of a person now.
Well, I think when I saw the Requiem for, just briefly for Requiem for a Dream, I think I was too old to watch it because I'm just thinking, if you kids got a decent job,
I was too old to watch it at like 16. So like, that movie is...
you wouldn't be doing the drugs. And
You're stealing TVs from your parents. and-
that's like, get
man.
off my lawn with your drugs.
I just felt bad for the mom in Requiem for a Dream.
Yes. Ellen. Well, actually, I lost my patience with her. Even I don't know. But that's another discussion for another.
But it's the same kind of vein of where it's like there's these humans who have problems that they don't know how to take care of, and same here in American Beauty, where it's like you can pinpoint.
There's maybe actually a very simple solution, but
usually communication or like being real with yourself, being honest to yourself about what you really want and who you really are. And letting go of things. That's why the mom character is like, she's all about this, like projecting.
Fake it till you make it.
Fake it till you make it. Project this success. And you will be successful kind of thing. And it's just so phony and fake. And, you know, you're losing your actual, like what you truly want and what's real for you. I like that kind of theme in a movie. I'm just interested in people in general and problems, which is...
it's scary in real life, but in movies it's interesting.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, that's why I picked this movie.
The summary is a sexually frustrated suburban father has a midlife crisis after becoming infatuated with his daughter's best friend.
Yuckers.
Yeah.
Yuckers again.
Yes.
Is that your official rating?
No.
Oh, okay.
Well, we'll see. We'll talk a little bit and we'll see if my rating changes.
Okay, all right. It opens with voiceover, which in Flophouse terms means it's a bad movie.
Yeah, no, it's pretty tough to pull off a voiceover film. It's pretty rare that
it does a good job of it.
I think in here it's so essential to it. We can talk about that when we get to the ending.
Yeah. I have.
You didn't like the voiceover?
Thoughts and feelings about this whole movie.
Yeah. Well, let's continue.
Yeah, I didn't expect to have feelings about this movie because this movie was one of those things everybody says you have to see it, and so I want nothing to do with it.
Yeah,
right.
Yep.
That's why I haven't seen Fight Club.
Oh, well, that's a mistake.
That is a mistake.
It's a good movie.
So yeah, like I said, I didn't do a detailed synopsis of this one, so this one is going to be a team effort as far as
that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
Story.
So I think
everything's all in feelings for me on this one.
Well, yeah, I mean, I get it too, because it's like, so if we talk about like the story, so you have Kevin Spacey, like you said in your summary, where it's basically, you know, he's having midlife crisis. He's pretty much checked out. He's dead inside, essentially. Got a job that's, you know, again, have to be happy for your consumers. He works in advertising, I think is what it was.
He hates the job and the job hates him.
Yes, essentially.
Yeah, and he's on track to be fired because the guy who's been there for a month, the efficiency manager or whatever, like already has him pulled into the office to write up like why he should keep his job.
Yeah.
Right. And his wife has become a realtor, and she's probably for like maybe the last 2 or 3 years she's become a realtor and basically high strung. I mean, I don't know how else you would put her, just very obsessed with
image.
Mm-hmm.
And their daughter is, of course, like he said in his voiceover, she's, you know, just your general teen, confused, angry, upset. And stuff changes. He starts to feel something when he goes to his daughter's cheerleading thing, like a game.
It's some dance that she's been practicing for a long time.
Yeah, and it's their way to be like, okay, let's reconnect. But it was kind of sad too in the car where he's like, oh, I'm missing a James Bond movie marathon for this, and she's not even going to want us here anyway.
Yeah.
And even when like they finished and the mom was like, oh, at least you didn't screw up.
Oh my God, to her daughter. Yeah. But anyway, so during this cheerleading thing, he starts to fantasize and has this whole dramatic
shot lasts for so long.
It's like icky, yuckers.
It is 14 minutes of this 2-hour movie, I swear.
And you know, I don't know how old that actress was, but she really, I mean,
she looks like a real teenager.
Yeah, I'm like, she looks like a child.
Yeah.
And you're watching this 42-year-old man or whatever start to fantasize about his daughter's friend right there, and it's like, oh God, this is what this movie's going to be.
And it's like this angelic lighting, and there are rose petals everywhere, and they're the only ones in the gym kind of fantasy.
Yeah. And
it's very gross.
It's very gross. We were talking about this morning where it's like he just immediately, like, he starts to feel something. I'm like, oh, like he feels a spark again. Yeah, go ahead.
Was it supposed to be gross, or was this supposed to be some enlightening thing, like here's this character coming to life?
See, I watched it when I first watched it and thought this is supposed to be gross.
Right.
I didn't see,
but it wasn't presented as because you're seeing the movie through Kevin Spacey's eyes.
yes,
Right. He does not see it as gross.
No, absolutely.
I mean, I would say that a normal person would see it as gross, but through his eyes, it's like, oh, she's covered in the rose petals and all of that. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Whereas on the outside, you're looking at it, and it's like, oh, well, all right.
I'm not sure if it's necessarily gross, but it definitely feels like an empty fantasy where it's like, you can tell, like, probably not going to happen with him. Like, he is completely putting, it's like he has no knowledge of this person at all.
Right.
Has no idea who she is.
That's what a lot of movies are, though.
Yeah.
And so his fantasy is completely empty in that regard, where it's just her and rose petals and nothing else.
That's what it was in Being John Malkovich, too. Like, the Craig character.
Yeah.
Right off the
Knew
bat.
nothing about
I
magazine.
love this woman.
Yep.
Like,
and I think for a person who's watching this movie has that mindset, like I'm watching a movie, just the way they other characters around him act towards him about it, like his daughter, and just like how he's portrayed as basically lecherous when he meets her, and who are you? Oh, a friend of Janie's
so
is
obvious.
a friend of mine,
Yeah.
and it's really gross. And I think if they hadn't have portrayed that as well next to that
It's incredibly awkward.
Right.
it would be like more of in a good light potentially.
yeah.
A male power fantasy
Yes.
kind of thing.
Yeah, whether or not the fantasy itself is gross, the way it's portrayed around, that definitely is.
Okay.
Because, like, he just cannot, like, hide that.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
very
bad at
open
it.
about
Yeah.
having this
Like
fantasy.
when he goes to call her, like his daughter's taking a shower, and he goes into her room where her phone's at and her book, and he finds her number, Angela's number, and he calls her, and he sneaks off and he runs away, and his daughter goes, "Oh, gross!" when she sees that her book's been open and her friend had called her, like, "Hey, I star 69'd you and your number called," and she puts two and two together. It's being shown as this is gross.
yeah,
But
even in
that's that's the daughter who is going to think her father's gross no matter what.
Yeah, but yeah,
But she has a very specific reason for thinking it's gross. Because, like, even in the very first conversation that the dad had with Angela in front of
She
the
did
daughter,
get a vibe, didn't she?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah, and she called him out on it immediately.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
so immediately it was.
Did the mom do anything? Did she
No.
notice?
I think the mom was oblivious. If
Yes.
I remember right.
Yeah.
right, exactly. And I think it's interesting about the Angela character, which I really feel for this little girl,
I know it.
because she plays off all this time like she is like, I'm going to be a model, and I like it when the men look at me.
I am a sex symbol.
and it's good that men look at me because that means I'm going to make it as a model, and yada yada yada. And then we'll talk more about her character, but she's set up as to be like this sexy 16-year-old essentially,
Yeah.
who has experience already, who is owning her sexuality in a way. And so you're kind of set up with that. But I think the daughter serves as a reminder, hey, they're the same age as your daughter.
Yeah.
Gross, dad, gross, dad, gross. Yuckers.
Yeah, this movie is kind of chock full of creeps because there's also Wes Bentley.
Right.
Was he the neighbor?
He's his
kid?
neighbor boy.
Right.
Yeah.
Um,
yeah, that
They've
was.
just moved in. He always has his camera, his video camera.
You know, that's pretty weird, but it didn't become solidified until he had, like, the daughter's name burned into the yard. Like,
Yeah.
he had something lit on fire.
Yeah, that boy ain't right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about his family life,
Yeah.
Yeah.
also not right. So
Jesus.
that all happens, and he starts to have this power. The
dad.
the dad starts to have these fantasies, and then he actually meets the neighbor boy, who ends up at
They're at some function for his wife's work.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
Yes.
And I kind of
Peter Gallagher's there for some reason.
He's the king.
He's the other. Yeah.
Oh no, he's her boss, right?
No, he's a
He was like a
competitor realtor.
Oh, competitor realtor. Got it.
So he
Right,
was
right.
like the king of realty
Yeah,
or something.
because she had seen his name on and some other house that was being sold, and, like, his name was on it,
That's
like,
right.
as
But
the king.
But they end up having an affair, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Yes, that's right.
Correct,
That's right.
correct.
I remember that.
And
That's a very important piece.
And there's also an important piece that makes me feel for the mom just a little bit, is when she's like going to do an open house, and she has this like daily affirmation before she's like, today I'm going to sell this house. Today I'm going to sell this house. Yeah. And it's a shit house. Like, you can see that, like, things are falling apart in it.
and she's put a lot of work into cleaning that.
Yeah. And then nobody buys it. And so she closes the windows to the curtains, and she starts crying.
It's like she clocks out first.
Yes. And then she
then-
starts to cry, but then she starts to beat herself and slap herself saying, get it together, you idiot, and all this stuff. But she's still crying. And you're like, ooh, it's going to be this kind of movie, huh?
Yeah.
Well, it's probably a very realistic depiction on how high-pressure salespeople treat themselves.
Yes.
I mean, they may fit not physically, but some do, maybe,
And depending on the person, how do you deal with the stress of that pressure?
Right.
And
especially if you spent all morning saying, I will sell this house, and then the whole day goes by and you haven't sold it. Like, that's a very explicit failure in your own eyes.
And then their poor daughter who doesn't get any attention because they're so caught up in their own.
Greatest.
Yeah, I like Jane a lot.
I love her so much.
So you've got this family who are like, oh great, this, like I said, it's going to be this kind of movie. The neighbor boy becomes love interest to Jane.
Yes.
Yep.
And he's creepy in his own regards.
He's very creepy. The daughter's friend calls him on being creepy.
Yeah. But the dad kind of takes him as a hero because there's a whole thing that we talked about during the movie, Brandon and I, when we watched it together, where he's out back at the catering event where he met the king or whatever, and they go out and they smoke a joint.
Yep.
And they
bond over Reanimator.
Yes.
Which is very cool.
Yeah. And then the boy's boss comes out and says, I'm not paying you around to do this. And he goes, well, I quit, so you don't have to pay me.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. And the guy was like, excuse you? He's like, I'm quitting, so then you don't have to pay me. And Kevin Spacey's like,
you can just do that?
You're my hero. And I'm like, of course he can just quit.
Yeah.
He's a teenager.
Yeah.
He lives at home.
He's got some side hustles too.
Yeah, I know. He's making lots of money selling weed and stuff, but like, okay.
But like, he's gonna have a home to come home to. Like, if he quits his job, he's not gonna struggle with his mortgage payment.
He's not the one supporting a family. He is. Yeah.
And so that's, of course, he's your hero. And that's why I kind of like, you can see.
So he's maybe aspiring to be this teenager while he's looking at a teenager sexually. Like,
well, he's regressing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
And if you're dead inside, I guess that's all you can do is rewind.
Was this the time that he talked about having his burger job? Because, or maybe that was later with, because that's the age range that he always wants to go back to.
Right.
When he was working the burger joint, had no responsibilities, and could just quit a job like this kid did.
I mean, there's a scene where he says, like, I remember when I was younger and I would just, smoke weed and get laid all the time, or I would party. It was partying and getting laid all the time. And it's like, okay, great, but that's...
You have a mortgage now.
Yeah. And I get that. I get that struggle, you know? Mm-hmm. But it doesn't help when your partner is pushing so far into the, like, realm of accepting it, she's faking it, you know what I mean? And becoming basically phony. And so I see a lot of that tension there. Like if his wife were a different person where she could come down off of her, whatever it is that she's trying, her fantasy that she's trying to live and be with him. Like I remember there was one part in the movie where he's working out and smoking weed and she's upset with him. And I'm like, dude, if I were you, I'd just be in there working out and smoking weed with him too. Like, what are you doing? Stop pruning your roses.
Maybe chill out. Take a second.
Yeah, for real.
I think the party scene was definitely important because, like, one, like, the wife is very explicit about, like, portraying success outwardly. Yeah. Even if it's not true. And, like, he's, pretending to be like, oh, I'm so happy I'm here. But then you also see the king of real estate and his wife, who is in the same spot as Kevin Spacey's character. That wife is not happy to be there.
Mm-mm. She's off, off to the side a little bit.
And like the guy who plays the king is also having that same thing of like projecting success. So like you have this diagonal relationship between the two sets.
Right.
Of like the spouse that doesn't really want to be there has to be there.
This movie is a folding fan. It is a point at the end that everything else is working towards. I think this movie was written backwards. Like they started at the end and said, okay, I need this part, we need this to happen in this order for all of this to come together and do the absolute worst thing.
I could see that. Yeah.
Right. Well, what I read at the time, I think it was in Premiere Magazine, the script writers, and I think it was a script writing team, they did sitcoms. Oh. And so I think they did Ellen and Roseanne at the time. And but they wanted to do is that they always said that, we ought to do a movie where we take these sitcom tropes and then twist them to,
That totally comes out because I was trying to decide what the tone of this movie was. Like it was half Oscar bait and half like quirky I don't know.
It was a sitcom, because for example, if we talk about Kevin Spacey's fantasy for his daughter's friend, it's like, well, in a sitcom, a 21-year-old would come in and twist it's like, but that's kind of like still maybe not appropriate, but still within the realm of, but it's like, you can kind of sit there and it's like, well, what if she's 16 and the daughter's, so that's like one of the things. And then the whole misunderstandings that happen, which culminate in, misunderstandings are part of sitcoms. They're
exactly. That's the situational comedy. So like another thing was like,
not communication.
Yeah. Or misunderstanding or making assumptions.
Yes.
And so one thing you were talking about that it just struck me was, we're going to jump forward a little bit. So the neighbor boy's dad, who is like this Marine sergeant or whatever he was, colonel.
Right.
And very straight-laced, hates homosexuals, doesn't want him to do drugs.
There's a gay couple that lives next door to...
Yep, Scott Bakula was one of the...
And...
He's like, how can they just be out here?
Right, exactly. And at some point, he finds a tape of his sons, which was of Kevin Spacey working out, right? And he's naked. And he's like, oh, what's going on? And then he sees him later. He sees his son. His son gets a message on his pager to go sell weed to Kevin Spacey. He goes over to Kevin Spacey's garage.
Where he's working out.
And his dad sees the situation where he can't see 100%. His son's in one window, Kevin Spacey's in another window. In a sitcom, that would be a funny, ha 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 ha, oh, it looks like he's giving a blowjob to this guy.
Yeah. This sudden Austin Powers scene. In the
Austin Powers came out the same year, or The Spy Who Shagged Me came out the same year. So, they did kind of a very similar, the tent scene where they kind of just...
Yeah, like things are dropping out of the butt.
Right.
It didn't help that Kevin Spacey put his arms behind his head.
Exactly. That's whole sitcom, that's the setup.
But of course, the dad reads that. I mean, he's a messed up... He's got his own baggage and his own problems and own repression that he takes out on his son, and it becomes dark and twisted.
If only he put in one of the other 500 movies or videotapes.
Yeah, I know.
And saw that wasn't just...
Yeah, that happened to be the one that he picked up.
Yeah.
Right.
Sitcom.
Yeah, exactly. The exact wrong one.
So that's really interesting to know that I had no idea the writers were sitcom writers. It makes sense now when you look at it that light. Huh. There's a lot of that in that movie.
Yeah.
Like when... the king and his wife are in the car at the burger place.
Right.
And then they show up at the window and Kevin Spacey goes, here's your meal, and then they're like, oh, and like the other woman just like busted. And like, if it was in a different light, if a different tone, it would be such a haha moment. Add a laugh track to it.
Right. Like a different FPS and it would read completely differently.
Yes, exactly.
And this is something this is one reason why that voiceover at the beginning was important, because you have that dramatic irony of knowing he's going to die. So you're seeing the situation like coalesce into the like you see the avenues leading towards the end.
Right.
So like you see that this affair is happening, that he finds out. So like that's just another thing where he's happy or he's getting happier. He's living this new job, but it's not going to last.
Right.
Or, living this new life kind of thing. Getting fit, quit his job, extorted his job, blackmailed them for money, which was a powerful scene.
Which worked.
Which was a similar scene in Fight Club.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know.
But then having that voiceover at the beginning like puts this whole layer over the movie that you get this undertone when you watch all these scenes that I like.
Yep. And Fight Club also had a voiceover at the beginning.
Yeah, it has the same story structure.
Interesting.
The fate structure where you have the end and then you work up to it.
I was thinking of what were you talking about? The layering and knowing that he's going to end up dying, which I really liked, because it was like, especially when they started to get into like the second act, right? And she's gonna go shooting. The dad has guns. And then the boy said they have that whole moment with the two teens where she's like, he should just die.
Right.
And you want me to kill him.
Yeah.
So now you have three avenues of...
Yeah. There's a lot of misdirection.
There's a lot of misdirection and like who's going to kill who? Or how's he going to die?
They
who's going to kill him?
They all have their own reasons.
Yeah.
Right. You can imagine seeing Al Bundy in that situation.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, wasn't this the finale to Simpsons? Is this where Maggie Simpson shot?
yes.
No, she shot Burns. That's right.
Right, exactly.
Who shot Burns?
Oh man, this movie. It was just sad. There's just so much, like you said, no communication. and you just want them to talk to each other, and then they just
even when they do, they fuck it up.
Yeah.
Like, he tries to talk to his daughter.
Yeah. Don't become a bitch like your mom. That's what he said to her at one point, because she was like, you're being gross about Angela coming over. The reason why I haven't had Angela over is because of you.
Yeah.
Now to get into like, I feel the most sympathy for, of all these messed up characters, honestly, Kevin Spacey's character, which I feel conflicted about sometimes, because it's like, here he is having this weird midlife crisis and projecting this fantasy on this little girl, right? Mm-hmm. But I can kind of understand that, even though it's disgusting.
The man needs therapy.
Yes. And so the part of the movie, the other theme of this movie is like the little girl, Angela, she's saying like the worst thing you could ever be is ordinary, right? Mm-hmm. And then when he left his job, he said, I'm just an ordinary man with nothing to lose. And then, the whole confrontation with her when the boy comes over after he gets punched by his dad, because he tells his dad that he's been blowing Kevin Spacey's character. And he's like, let's leave. Well, if I say let's leave for New York tonight, will you come with me? And she says yes. And then Angela is all, you're a creep, you're weird, and I'm her friend. You're not her friend. You just use her to make yourself feel good. And she cries and leaves. And then runs to Kevin Spacey, essentially.
Yeah, that's kind of like her last resort, her little last gambit.
To get validation from this older man, to make her feel worthwhile. Mm-hmm. And that whole everything really got to me personally, because it's like, here you can see this girl who her entire life, she's been groomed by society. Sex is important. Being beautiful is important. This is who I am. This is all I am. And then you have Kevin Spacey, who is fulfilling that for her. And then when she breaks down and says, this will be my first time, and he realizes that, this isn't a sitcom. This is not. Right. This is a child.
Yeah.
And then the whole like hugging her, and she's like, I'm sorry. I mean, this is a part where I started to break down when I first watched it. And he's like, no, you have nothing to be sorry about. And you can see that there's going to be maybe some sort of like redemption arc for both of these characters. And then you don't get it really 100%. You can see the turn starting to happen.
Yeah.
Right.
It just gets
cut off by death.
Yeah, that was a very important turn of events, because like if he had actually followed through in the fantasy, then his character wouldn't have been redeemed. Like he was in an upswing, he was becoming a better person, and he was a good enough person at the time to actually turn her down when he needed to.
Yes.
When he realized that his fantasy was completely empty.
Right.
And like this is actually a living human person who has her own anxieties about things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think in a way, like he treated her like he should have treated his daughter in terms of like caring for her in some vulnerable position, like because he like even put like a blanket around her and like
made her a sandwich and everything.
Yeah, let her know that it wasn't her fault, things like that. Like that's what he should have been doing all along with his own family.
Right.
And he finally became a good enough person to do that for someone.
Right. Ugh. So that was a heavy part for me that always gets to me. And then of course, we even talked about
that other family
dad
is the most compelling thing for me. Yeah.
Another sitcom situation that could have been funny, but is not, and is actually twisted and dark. Is
the wacky neighbor, right?
Yeah. Where
weirdo next door, strict military dad.
Yeah.
Checked out mom. I don't know what.
She seems to have some sort of mental. She must be.
Oh, right.
The mom. She's just absent.
Right. Yeah, I forgot there was a mom until you mentioned that. But yeah. She's just kind of just there.
A shell.
Just checked out.
Yeah. There was one framing that I really liked. It was the husband and wife on the couch, and the husband was center couch, and she was kind of crammed off to the side with her drink, not even on the coffee table, just over there.
And her body language is just so pushed over, like and not like he's doing it. It's just
that's his aura.
Yeah, he's pushing. She's just away from him. So that whole family, God, it's just like a house of repression, right?
Yeah.
Like, so he finds out about the tape and then saws that whole sitcom situation where, his son looks like he's giving a blowjob, confronts his son. His son says, yes, I'm doing this. And he can't, kicks his son out. And, it's weird because like you watch it and you think that if his son said that I am doing these homosexual acts, he would actually like go through with beating him. but he doesn't. He's just holding his fists out like he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So then Kevin Spacey's working out in his garage, and the dad comes over, military dad comes over, soaking wet, and Kevin Spacey's like, "Oh, what's going on?" or whatever. And
this scene is the thing for me.
Yeah,
by the way.
and he and the other dad goes in for a hug, and so you got two dads hugging, which would be a situational like haha moment,
right?
But
or it would be more like, "Aw,
yeah, And then he's like, aren't you worried about your wife or something? And he goes, "Oh, I don't know where my wife's at." He's like,
she's having an affair.
Yeah, he's having an affair. She's you don't care if your wife is with another man. He goes, "Oh, our marriage is just for show."
Yes, exactly.
Sitcom situation, misunderstanding.
Cool.
And then, he ends up going in for a kiss and kisses Kevin Spacey. And then Kevin Spacey goes, "Oh, no, you got the wrong idea."
It's like that dad had his own American
I'm about
Beauty.
to cry right now. Like, this is so fucking sad to me.
Yeah.
It's like the dad had his own American Beauty fantasy of Kevin Spacey.
Like, here's this
he didn't know
person
anything
who's
about
like me.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, he doesn't care about where his wife is. Oh, I wonder what that means. He's putting his own projections on what that is.
Yeah.
And then he's confronted with the reality of it, and it's rejection for him. Yeah. And him being outed on top of that.
It's just a bunch of gay panic.
Yeah. And so again, it's like in that moment where he is like hearing about his son doing what he thinks is
possibly doing what he wishes he could himself do.
Or like, my son is also like me. And even earlier on in the film, like they're driving and he's talking about, he sees Kevin Spacey running with the two, the partners. And he's like, "Oh, look, it's like a gay pride parade out here. Well, they should be ashamed." And then the son goes, "Well, Dad, it's probably because they don't think it should be something they should be ashamed of." And he's like, "I don't like that talk." Then he says something, derogatory towards homosexuals. And then his dad says, "Well, just don't do that to placate me." And then his son says something.
He doubles down
real hard.
Because he knows that's what he's supposed to say.
And I think that actor did a really good job because, like, in that facial expression, it was kind of like this weird mix of like, okay, good,
I'm
but
relieved,
also
but I'm also kind of hurt,
sad because my son actually thinks that maybe.
Yeah.
And that's what I read. Even the first time I saw that movie, like I was like, that's a kind of a weird reaction to like, were you taken aback by your son's double downing
very
or
suspicious.
like what's going on with that?
Right. Well, the actor's Chris Cooper plays the dad.
It was incredible.
Yeah, he was really good.
And that's the first time that he kind of gained above ground note. I mean, he'd been a character actor for years, but this was the first time that people noticed it.
He was also in October Sky the same year.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Oh, wow. Huh.
I like his interactions a lot with the gay couple of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Because like he kept on saying like they're throwing it in our face or doing that.
But they're just out here existing.
All they did was say like, "Oh, this is my partner." It was Chris Cooper who said like, "What kind of business you got? Like, you trying to sell me something?"
Yeah.
It was him that drew that out of the characters.
So do you think he had that sense and was trying to get them to say it?
I think...
Or was he just that off guard?
I think he was just so repressed that he's so used to attacking things like that. He's so used to thinking that, all these other gay people are being out and open and happy. Like, he's just naturally has to attack that because that's part of his being. So, like, regardless of whether they actually are.
So he was trying to antagonize them?
Yeah. And he just didn't realize that he was the one who's pulling that out and attacking them for it.
Right.
Because he did that with the running, too. Same thing with the gay parade. No, they're just running.
Yeah.
These are just
exercising.
If he's a repressed homosexual, I mean, he was never happy being that. And it's like, well, I'll be damned if anybody else is going to be happy.
Exactly.
About, you know.
A lot of projecting happening.
Man.
Oh, yeah.
Everywhere. This movie was, See what I was like, oh, can't wait to wake up tomorrow and watch this movie.
And even the king of real estate, like after he did break up and he was having a conversation with the Kevin Spacey's wife, it was like, oh, my wife left me because I value work too much. How stupid is that? Like, it's exactly in line with how the wife is also broken.
Yeah.
Where it's you put that focus on success and you don't think it's a bad thing, but you don't notice how destructive it actually is.
Oh, man.
There's a lot that happened in this movie.
Yeah. It is very much a lot of puzzle pieces.
Yeah.
That all have to fit together very precisely. And there's just something off about it to me, and I was trying to figure out what is extraneous. And to me, because I am pretty much only interested in the other family, the Kevin Spacey character and the cheerleader are the extraneous parts for me. Like this movie is about the queer character not coming to terms with something. But you can't really you can't pull them apart either. Right. Like, I almost think that the movie is in the wrong point of view. Because I don't think that those other two matter. I don't think any of that is important, because the important part is this family and what they're dealing, like, what the hell, other than a Nazi plate, is in the locked room that...
Yeah.
Oh, like why he got so upset when his son went there?
Yeah.
Like, you're going to find my gay porn kind of upset level?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I know.
And like, what's up with the mom? How else did the kid get the way he got? And, you know, like...
I think sometimes that can make for a good...
Like, that's the movie for me.
I think that's why I mean, sometimes I see these movies and where you're watching these, like, there's all these interesting other secondary characters, tertiary characters. Yeah. And it's really good that they make them so deep that you're actually wondering about them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
So it's not like they're not there for plot devices, or they're not, like, they have their own agenda whole life. They feel like real people.
It's just so weird because the shell of the movie feels like the plot device for that character's arc. I don't know. I also thought that the daughter was a lot more compelling than Kevin Spacey.
I think in terms of Kevin Spacey, the thing that
changed a lot.
Is compelling is his own personal arc, not necessarily him himself, because that's a common issue that a lot of people have, is like, you've got all this responsibility now. You can't be like the neighbor boy anymore, even though he wants to be. And then, like, he was basically like Bill Murray's character in Rushmore, where it's like he hates himself where he is, and he has to actually work to get to a point where he's getting better. Not necessarily him, but the arc that he takes, I think, is interesting. And I think that's a good viewpoint to see all of the characters around him, because, like, he's connected. He has a connection to everybody in the film, like, to some degree. Yeah. So, like, by putting the camera mostly on him, you get to see, like, everyone revolves around that.
So he's maybe, everything else is a little tangential to him, and so he's got to be the crux of everything.
Right. And the other thing is that that family, you know, Annette Bening and Kevin Spacey and Thora Birch as his daughter, are the quote unquote normal American family.
Right.
Right. And then that's what they're parodying in this film. And so you kind of have to have that as the quote unquote normal, so that the other, you know, characters can bounce off of that.
Yeah. And that other family also almost felt like a Roseanne type family of, here's your working class, also normal, but in a different sense, like the lower class normal, as opposed to the middle high class that the other family was.
Right. And the title American Beauty is the perfect title, because what's the American Beauty? Is it, you know, Kevin Spacey's, you know, he sees
his daydream of the girl,
of the dream as a beauty? Is it, you know, the inclusiveness, or the hope for inclusiveness with Scott Bakula and his partner? Is it the success that Annette Bening hopes to achieve? It's like her American Beauty is, let's just maintain the house and maybe get more stuff.
Is it?
It's the plastic bag floating in the wind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's it. That's perfectly that.
I mean, that's one of a long time, you know, finding beauty in the ordinary kind of thing, which is the whole thing, you know, instead of looking for whatever it was the mom was looking for, you know, that's, you know, is it really that, or is it just appreciating the ordinary things in your life? Is that the American Beauty? So
the sitcom title was American Dream, but...
Yes.
This became American Beauty.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And like that beauty is so confining, because like the way this movie is shot and a lot of the way it's presented, it's so confining. Like they have their suburban American homes, but so much of it is shot outside of windows looking in.
Yeah.
And you see like the wooden cross frames of the windows. So, like there's always looks like there's bars over the characters.
Yeah.
Like everybody is confined in their own spaces. Like the neighbor is like, you know, he has his own issues with repression. Like he's confined with that in his home. Like everyone exists in these bubbles, and they kind of just clash against each other. And they always see the other bubbles as whatever they want them to see.
Yeah.
So that's something
really
else that is interesting to me.
It's a good observation. I never thought about that. Like the house looking as like confining. Yeah. Even the videotaping is kind of confining.
Yeah.
here you are putting yourselves in this format, seeing yourselves through a different lens.
And from the outside, it looks beautiful, but you don't actually know what's going on inside.
Right.
And it would be at its most concrete with the two fathers, where the repressed one is seeing, this is what I want, this is what I want to be, but it's not what it looks like. Yeah, that's cool.
Oh man, this movie.
It's good. No.
So you say the narration was necessary. That was one of my questions was it?
So like, after his spoilers, the guy dies.
Well, the movie's 20 years old.
At this point.
Yeah. So like, once he's actually died, and he's putting to words the message, or like the end of his arc basically is explained after he's dead. Already, he's like explaining like, I don't even remember how.
He showed his like, when you die, your life goes by, and he's pointing out things like he saw. For him, it was, laying in the grass, looking at the stars when he was at whatever camp, and then his grandmother's hands and how they felt papery, or that kind of stuff, which I think is very interesting. That those are the things that he said that he saw as he's dying.
Yeah, as he's dying. Because like if his character died and there was no voiceover, like he is no longer able to communicate in the movie. But like he has a lot to say at that point in the movie.
His death does, yeah.
Because like he's come around, he's learned so much, and he dies before he's able to say it to his family. So he can only say it to us.
Yeah, I mean, when he gets tapped in the back of the head, he is holding a photo of his family, picture. Just looking at his family like, man, oh man, man, oh man.
Mm-hmm.
The only picture that we're shown where it looks like true happiness and joy on any of their faces, because we see the other pictures in the house, so it's usually just the daughter or like them posed and stuff. And this is like the only picture that we've seen that's like all three of them actual smiles on their faces and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that he remembers are like when he's first dating his wife.
Yes.
And when his daughter is little.
Yes. Or when she was on the doorstep with her Halloween costume. Yeah.
I mean, for me, the anytime there's voiceover, the reason I don't like it is that it's kind of used as just an exposition machine.
Yes.
It's like, this is the point.
It's a bit
like,
hack.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's just like, there you go. This is the point of the movie in case you missed it beforehand.
Yeah.
Right.
Where, even in like film noir, I don't like it just because, the points that they should make either should be.
I understand that it's stylistic, but.
Right. And the other thing is that, we don't need to be, I don't need to get that specific about what Kevin Spacey's character thinks. I mean, we can kind of fill that in as well. And sometimes it's better if we kind of fill in that space ourselves as to, if we want to consider it.
Yeah, if you want to.
But,
is it important to know that he's going to die at the end?
I think
it would be a different movie, I think. I think you wouldn't have been expecting it. It would have been more of a shock.
I mean, I think that lets the dramatic irony happen.
The shooting,
it also
the gun range.
It also opens up
a military man who is volatile.
Yeah.
I know. I think if I did not have
a girl who says she wants her father to die, like that's all like implied that people are like it's possible.
I can tell you that if me personally, if I did not know that he was going to die, I would be very disappointed at the end of the movie.
Okay,
because I would have been hoping for him to succeed.
I would have loved it if I did not know that he was going to die, to be perfectly honest, just because of the fact that if you kind of take this, as a conception of like, the darkest sitcom, and it's like at the end, it's like, wah, that's the end, and that's the punchline.
Yes. So it's like
he dies.
The dark punchline.
Yeah, the dark punchline.
It's almost like showing off, like, here's what the ending is going to be, and look how cool it is when we do it. Like,
there's that too.
Yeah. I wonder if they did, sometimes they do tests, of movies, test screenings with audiences. And I wonder if there's anything, if they did that with this movie. Because I wonder if they were trying to appeal to a larger, like instead of the people who enjoy being John Malkovich, we're trying to appeal to a larger, the more mass consumer.
Right.
If they had to put those voiceovers in. Because like I can go both ways. I know as a mass consumer, I would have been disappointed at the end because I would have just been wanting to have him succeed. And I would have walked away from the movie fine with it. Like I would have done my own contemplation, come to my own conclusions, and it'd have been a good discussion thing. But I can see like my stepmom and my dad and other people just hating it.
Sure.
Just absolutely hating it because of that. They would have been rooting for Kevin Spacey's character, and like we did in the Deep Blue Sea episode, where like they had the science lady living to begin with,
right?
But they killed her off because the test audiences hated her.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there's anything like that.
I mean,
and it or not.
I think that would be important because that's a low barrier of entry for normal people to get into like a higher conversation,
a higher concept film,
and it did win Best Picture. So like that is what they were going for,
because it was very like. I'm okay with the narration both ends for that kind of reason, because it's kind of like it also kind of feels like a dark Hallmark movie. So like I don't know, like it just, especially the one at the end was like a bookend. Yeah, like this is the epilogue thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would be interested to see. Maybe I should look it up and see if they did do a test or if they changed.
I
or
don't
what they're
know offhand.
I think to your question of like whether it was necessary to know at the beginning of the movie if you had lived or not, I think for me it adds a lot to it because you like, yes, you can show these lines of like people having intent to kill, but you're seeing these multiple avenues, but you know for a fact that one avenue is going to actually get followed up on. So like you don't know what avenue it is, but you know for sure that one of them is going to
There could have been the fourth option though of none of these avenues work.
Could, and that would have been unsatisfying.
Okay.
It's kind of like this, you were talking about Chekhov's gun when we were watching the movie.
Yeah.
It's kind of like this multi-Chekhov's gun.
Yes.
Where like
Yes.
you have 3 guns.
There are so many.
One of them are gonna, one of them's going to fire.
I saw the gun. I was like, hey, look, it's Chekhov's gun.
And I think if you didn't know that up front, like you would have 3 avenues, but you would still have that uncertainty going through each of those avenues rather than knowing for sure.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
It'd be interesting to...
Especially with the fake out where you see the same gun the wife had.
Yes.
And when
then she walks up to the door and
But I don't think there was any up until the point where military dad kissed Kevin Spacey, he was in the running for any of it. You just knew that there was guns in the house.
He was a violent man.
Okay.
With a lot to protect.
Sure. Okay.
He was
something,
He was at his wit's end. He was soaking in the rain. Like
yes.
He was
okay.
Very desperate.
Oh my God. Just his eyes being so red, like he's sopping wet and also crying, obviously.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So
it hurts so much.
Going around the table, the narration at the beginning and the end, yay or nay? Or nay?
I'm going to go nay.
And I go meh. Okay. Like it could have been either way. Like I could see it working either way. I just know that on the one version, I would view it differently and have a different reaction to the end. But it wouldn't be a bad react. It would have been just a...
My other thing is, I like that it exists at the beginning, but the bookend part is important for that. Like if it just existed at the beginning and then the ending had not,
absolutely,
then it would be really strange. So like if you have both there, that's better than having one.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of why that's important for me.
Why do we think it won Best Picture?
In 1999?
Well, a lot of great acting. I mean, regardless of what you feel about the plot or the implications. I mean, Chris Cooper, Kevin Spacey.
Thorburch is incredible.
Where we have Wes Bentley.
He did great at a creepy character.
Yeah.
Who was the mom?
Allison Janney.
The other one,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Annette Bening?
Annette Bening was Kevin Spacey's wife.
Yeah.
But yeah, I probably had arguably the best acting of any film that year.
I also thought that Kevin Spacey was the weak link in that. Honestly, I thought that he wasn't as great an actor compared to the rest of them.
Yeah, especially since...
and I think he won Best Actor, so like whatever.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean anything.
I would have given it to someone else in the movie, yeah. Because his arc was like becoming a kid again, in a way. This was like the opposite of Big Daddy. Like instead of a guy becoming an adult.
The opposite of big.
Yeah. Yes, sure.
Little.
So, thinking about movies in general... I don't know much about, what was chosen as most subjects or what is portrayed family-wise, movie-wise. I mean, 1960s TV movies and stuff were all like very happy family kind of stuff,
the
right?
The 70s subverted that.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And the 80s kind of got back to the happy families for the most part with Cosby's show and all of that.
Right.
Yeah. And so I wonder if it's also just like, as... we were talking about homosexuality being portrayed in movies and these more complex, deeper depression, repression stuff, themes. And just like I said, combined with the good acting, it touched people in a different way. It became more relatable to people. Like there's a lot of people now who can go see movies and this is 1999. I don't know. It's just me speaking out of my ass right now. But like for me, Yeah, like the part of the movie that makes me cry like every time is when the mom walks into the house. She throws the gun into her purse with her handbag with the gun in it into the hamper. She stands up and then she touches Kevin Spacey's clothes and then just collapses. I cry at that every time. And it's just so...
It's like she had decided not to do this thing, but then it happened anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
And so there's like this huge sense of loss. And like, I think people can really see like the fantasies, not just the sexual ones, but just any of the fantasies that you can pull out of this movie. Just super relatable.
Yeah. I don't know if this is a part of why these movies are chosen for awards, but like those themes affect like many, many people in this country. Like we all know what the American dream is. And like, we all know that to varying degrees it's bullshit, or like it's more complex than it's portrayed.
Yeah.
And like there's definitely something that a lot of people can relate to in this movie, whether it's repression or like the kind of family life, the career aspirations, faking
the
it,
pressure,
and stuff like
the
that.
stress,
being a teenager.
Exactly, yeah.
wanting to go back to being a teenager.
It's like there's so much going on in this movie that anybody could latch onto potentially.
We've been talking a lot lately about queer characters in these movies. Haven't really yet run into Bury Your Gays, which is a big one now. Which is where if there's a gay character, they've got to be the one that dies.
Right.
Technically, didn't this time.
No.
Gay character killed him.
Right.
So yeah, you've maybe got the psycho lesbian in being John Malkovich, but they didn't die.
And in this one, they just wanted to live their life.
I just think about that trope a lot.
Yeah.
So.
Sure.
Yeah, this one,
I think they were kind of getting away from that in the mid '90s. Then, I mean, that was a thing.
Yeah,
you know, like I think Philadelphia came out in 1994.
Yeah, it would have been early '90s. Yeah,
right. So, so again, I'm thinking, they're thinking, well, what if they don't die? What
if they're characters with lives?
Yeah, exactly. So
you know what mine is, but what's the thing in this movie?
I think for me, it's the symbology of the rose petals.
Okay.
Of like, like once you see the rose petals, like,
okay,
you're in fantasy mode.
I have something to say about that. Is that the rose petals are fantasy mode? Whole roses, are reality.
Exactly.
So gardening at the beginning, and then at the end when he's talking to the teenager, the cheerleader, there are whole roses on that couch table or whatever.
Yep.
So that's where you see that the fantasy is broken.
Yeah, and like. In that one scene where it's not quite for sure a clean break into fantasy, like he pulls the rose petal out of his mouth.
Right.
Yeah. So like there's always a tell, but it doesn't immediately show up.
Right.
And then you get that little subversion once you have the whole roses and stuff.
Yeah.
For me, it might be similar to what you have. It's Chris Cooper kissing Kevin Spacey.
Yeah.
Because I remember watching it
happening in that instant.
Exactly. I remember seeing it, originally in 1999. Exactly. The whole movie changes.
Yes.
It's like, it's complete shock. And I was like, it's like you say, like 12 times because it's like, wow, the implications
this
of
explains
that.
so much about him and his child and
how he is as a person.
Yes.
Yeah, when you rewatch it, you have a whole new layer.
I know it.
A whole new lens to look at it with.
I kind of already talked about mine, was that whole breakdown with Angela and him.
Okay.
Where for me, that was such a good, it was just really, it's something that was, it's still skeevy, but it flipped Kevin Spacey as a character for me. Whereas like, he's no longer, like Brandon said, had reached that arc of like, oh, now I'm in a good place now. I don't need this weird, empty fantasy I have with this little girl who is like my daughter.
Yeah.
And then he turns from like trying to have sex with her to like being a father figure. Like, you're fine, you're okay, let me make you a grilled cheese sandwich or whatever and we'll talk about it.
Because I'm a dad
I'm
now.
a dad now. Yeah. I know it's still skeevy-ish, but at least like I liked that happen.
Waking up out of it.
Coming out of his funk, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that was to me. And then there's also personal things too, where it's like, I know that little poor girl.
Yeah.
Remember her bedroom just plastered in all those models?
Like no wall, completely covered in models'
like
faces.
models' faces and bodies and just all that stuff. I'm like, that poor girl. Ugh, feel for her.
A lot of complex characters. Yeah.
Her like, this will be my first time. This is my first time. And him just going.
Yeah, that's the thing. We don't get to see a lot of what the complexity is or what it means for any of them until the very end when these moments happen.
Because you really don't even know that the wife cares about Kevin Spacey until she's hugging his clothes.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you don't see any kind of sympathy from her to him.
She's,
I don't think at all.
yeah, too focused on her own thing
Yeah.
initially.
Only when it's too late.
Right. Do we have anything else to add about the daughter and Wes Bentley? We haven't talked about them much.
Well, they're kind of going on their own American dream, right? Because at the end of the movie, they're going off to New York. It's like,
Yeah.
And
you know, fuck our parents. Let's
Yeah.
let's just do our own thing.
Right. She's like, I have that $3,000 for my breast augmentation. And he's like, I've got $40,000.
For my drug operation.
Right. Yeah, it's like that's very much an Easy Rider type of,
And there was that
American. Yeah. So
sad. There was that scene where they're like laying together, and he's just like, we're really lucky we found each other.
Yeah.
And so you can see that their trajectory is now off. Like you said, they're doing their own American dream beauty thing.
they could be the most well-adjusted couple in the movie.
Yeah, totally.
For real.
They definitely like have
Despite
some
his
self-awareness.
baggage.
Because like there was some line she said where it's like, I should be fucked up right now or something like that. Of like, after dealing with like her parents,
Her mom slapping her face, her dad
Yeah.
yelling at her time.
I forget what
creeping on her.
I forget what exactly she said, but she was talking about like she should really be fucked up.
Yeah, she's like, my dad's probably fucking me all up right now. Like all the things that's happening should be fucking me up right now, or something like that. But
What kind of awareness do you think Wes Bentley has on how he has been shaped? 'Cause I can't tell if he's just weird or if he was made weird or like
He's very
I
how
think
will
it's-
he change?
Yeah, it's tough because the movie doesn't really explicitly go. But again, that's something that we can fill in. I mean,
Sure.
it kind of is, the discussion because of nature versus nurture, right? I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
it could be. I mean, looking at the way he was brought up, or the way we infer he's brought up, he's more well adjusted than
Than
we
he
would have
should
thought
be.
that he should be. Sure.
right.
I mean, he found art. And then art sometimes is, a lot of people use art to get out of those type of situations.
Yeah. I mean, we know he sees beauty in anything, really. And we know that he's kind of learned to live with how his dad does, because he just, by instinct, he'll say
He knows the
exactly
answer.
what
Yeah.
his dad wants him to say. Like, he prepares for all that. Like,
That's survival instinct.
and sometimes literally with, like, the urine samples in his freezer. Like,
Yeah.
he knows exactly how to get around that.
Yeah, I think he's just playing a role at home. But just, yeah.
But maybe has zero sense of personal space. Because, he's goes around filming people.
Yeah.
That was another funny thing, was, like, the dad is just, he's always talking about, like, the kid doesn't have any respect for personal belongings or whatever, but then he'll just break into the kid's room.
Yeah, I don't like locked doors in this house.
Yeah.
And he's got a locked room downstairs with his Nazi plate,
And his stash of porn.
presumably.
My headcanon.
Yeah, totally. Exactly. Well, is there anything that doesn't hold up?
Like, you mean like in... No, I think it's
Thematically?
it's still a good movie. It's still a really good movie.
Yeah.
I think holds up pretty well.
I mean, even
I think so,
the LGBT themes, like, the couple was presented very well.
Yes.
And that kind of repression that the guy has, like, that's
Still people
that's
learn about.
probably going
That
to
is
still be
a realistic
thing
representation.
for a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, in 10 years, that's probably still going to be applicable
Yeah.
to some extent.
I mean, there are people who repress all kinds of parts of themselves, like even outside of sexuality. So, like, there's going to be somebody who can relate to that no matter what.
Yeah.
Has this film influenced anything else, do we think? Not
I don't know how
necessarily.
much it influenced, but it was a part of the whole, I hate my corporate job. Aesthetic that kind of came out.
Yeah,
That was the same year
a
as
thing in the
Office Space.
zeitgeist for sure. Yeah,
It was in the zeitgeist, Office Space and Fight
Yeah.
Club.
Yeah. For
yeah,
sure,
yeah,
Fight
yeah,
Club.
yeah.
There's probably a few others that came out right around that time. Where
That's interesting. I didn't even think about that. Because I guess I was so ready to launch off away from Kevin Spacey that I just let go of everything that he was in the second he left the screen. So I was completely not focused on that at all. So we do think this is a good movie.
yeah,
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
I think
It's
so
a good
too.
movie.
Difficult to watch, but very good.
It's
I
a
mean-
movie that I would watch once every 10 years.
I mean, it's easy to watch. It's difficult to watch emotionally, is
Yeah.
what I mean.
Is it like Grave of the Fireflies level or?
No, not
Okay.
Grave of the Fireflies.
no,
Nothing
no,
is that
not even
level?
close.
That's
Not
just a
even
punch.
close.
That's just a constant punch in
Like
the
a
gut.
once in a lifetime?
Yeah, Grave
Yeah.
of the Fireflies is you watch it once and then
I own it. I
I
still
own it.
have only seen it once.
I own it. I've only seen it once.
Or Audition came out the same year.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. You probably only. Well, no, I've seen it 3 times, so I don't know what that says about me. But but yeah, also a very difficult movie to watch.
What's the most 90s thing about this movie?
Pager.
Yeah.
Well, the fact that I think we're kind of getting away from the whole, we have to work, at this corporate job and you have to be there for 20 years type of thing. I mean, everybody's now having their side hustles, and the fact that
we're starting the gig economy. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah. I mean, the gig economy. I mean, back, even in 1999, you're still in that.
You're lifers.
Yeah, you're lifers in this whatever corporation you've chosen to work for yourself, and but at least as far as the Kevin Spacey character is concerned. So that's probably the most 90 things about this movie, and again about Office Space and those type of films.
I think for me it's a little bit simplistic. It's just like all of his top of the line video equipment was just like VHS and a 4.3 CRT.
Like his room is nothing but walls of tapes, and it would just be a computer today. It would just have a computer with a big hard drive.
Yeah.
But outside of that, like, and the themes that you were talking about, I can't think of any other like specifically 90s things.
Fashion, I mean, but that's just...
There was a fuzzy bucket hat.
The fast food meal costing like $4.
That was one of mine. $4.98 for a fast food meal.
Yeah.
And Star 69.
Or like...
Star 69.
Star 69, yes.
No. I found it. Here's the most 90s thing. Going and getting a job at a fast food place, and that guy being like, this isn't for you. Like, you're too old.
This isn't a management position.
Nowadays, it's like...
You're overqualified.
You're going to get those people apply for those jobs.
Yeah.
It's not going to be weird.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not going to be weird for a
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a bummer, Brandon.
Yeah.
Thanks.
That fast food jobs aren't just taken by teenagers anymore.
Oh, my God. That's a great way to end this episode, is with that sound.
Or the fact that, like the salary, he was like, he negotiated a $60,000 salary, and I was like, but you have a mortgage. Like, how and also all this other stuff, and like, you're gonna, what? That's all you need?
All right, let's make this quick. I gotta try to get this uploaded before my mobile hotspot resets for the month. So, 1999 lives on at geekspective.com, where you can find other silly podcasts like this one. You can reach out to this show on the social medias at PlitGif, PLITGYIF. That's Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram. And you can find me on Tumblr at Tactical Polo. I gotta go see a Turian about a hoverboard, so I hope to see you at the next party.